Michael B. Jordan was out on the court that afternoon, shirt slightly damp with sweat, the sun sharp in the sky, his movements fluid and focused as he dribbled, shot, and sprinted with the kind of grace that comes from years of discipline, years of quietly turning pressure into performance. A few kids had gathered to watch. Nothing official, just a casual game in a public park, but the energy was magnetic. You could tell that even without the cameras or the movie scripts, Michael just loved the game. He moved like a man who didn't need to prove anything to anyone, but still couldn't help but give it everything. The sneakers scraped against the asphalt, the ball thudded rhythmically, and the distant murmur of the city was barely noticeable beneath the echo of the net swallowing another perfect shot. That's when he saw him, slowly approaching from the far end of the park, a figure that didn't quite belong, a man, old, maybe in his 70s, moving with the stiffness of age, but with eyes sharp as glass and locked directly onto Michael. At first, Michael didn't think much of it. People came up to him all the time, fans, seekers, even critics. But something about the way this man walked, the way he carried his presence like a heavy coat on a summer day, made Michael pause. The old man stopped just a few feet from the edge of the court, arms folded, not saying a word. Michael held the ball, bouncing it lightly against the ground, and offered a polite nod, expecting maybe a question, a compliment, even some advice from an old-school baller. Instead, the man's mouth barely moved, but the words came out like a command wrapped in sandpaper. "Take off that cross." Michael blinked. "Excuse me?" he asked, more confused than offended. He looked down instinctively at the thin silver chain resting on his chest, the small cross glinting in the sunlight, unmoved and innocent. The old man stepped closer, the wrinkles on his face tightening, voice firmer now, eyes harder. "I said take it off." For a split second, Michael thought it was some kind of joke. Maybe the man was playing around, trying to get a rise out of him, maybe even filming something for social media. Michael chuckled nervously and asked, "Why would I do that?" But there was no smile in the man's face, no phone in his hand, no prank. Just a strange, almost furious silence as he stared at the cross like it was something foul. "I don't want to see that symbol here," the old man muttered, tone low but thick with something personal, something cold. "Not around me, not on you, not today." And right there, in the middle of an otherwise normal afternoon, something shifted. It was no longer about basketball or the park or the chain. It was about something deeper, something unspoken. Michael could feel it, an edge creeping into the moment, a quiet heaviness curling around them, both like smoke from a fire no one could see. "Wait," Michael said, holding the ball in one hand, the other reaching up to touch the cross gently. "Is everything okay? Do you need something? Why does this bother you?" But the old man just shook his head, and in his eyes there was more than anger. There was hurt, like the cross meant something to him that Michael couldn't understand yet. Not here, not now, not fully. But soon. Very soon. This isn't just about a necklace, Michael realized. This is something bigger. Something buried. And as the tension thickened and the quiet returned, the game forgotten, the kids unsure whether to stay or go, Michael could feel it in his gut. This wasn't going to be just a strange interruption. This was the beginning of something. Something important. Something that would ask questions no one was ready to answer. Something that would turn a simple game of basketball into a moment neither of them would ever forget. So stay with this. Don't look away. The cross isn't the only thing that's about to be exposed. Michael chuckled softly at first, shaking his head in disbelief, thinking the whole thing was some kind of weird joke. "Take off the cross," he repeated, amusement creeping into his voice as he glanced down at the delicate silver chain resting against his chest. The old man's eyes narrowed, and suddenly his calm cracked. "I said, take it off," he shouted, his voice slicing through the afternoon air like a sudden storm. The laughter died on Michael's lips as the man's tone shifted from odd to urgent, his words ringing out sharp and unyielding. Michael froze, caught off guard by the intensity and the sheer force behind the demand. "Why?" Michael asked, genuine shock and curiosity filling his voice as he met the old man's burning gaze. The man's face twisted, a shadow crossing his features. "I don't want to see people walking around here wearing crosses," he said bitterly. "Not here. Not in this place. Michael's brow furrowed. And what if I don't take it off? He asked cautiously, already sensing this wasn't going to be a simple conversation. The old man leaned in, voice dropping to a dark whisper. Then it won't end well for you. The words hung heavy between them, charged with a warning that felt oddly out of place in the middle of a public park. Michael's heart beat a little faster, not from fear exactly, but from the sudden shift in atmosphere. This was no longer about religion or fashion, it was about something else, something buried deep beneath the surface of this man's rage and fear. Taking a slow breath, Michael squared his shoulders and tried to bring the tension down. Look, he said softly, let's not make this harder than it needs to be. Why don't we just talk? Calm down and figure this out. The old man's eyes flickered with hesitation, the harsh edges of his anger softening for a moment. Michael saw it then, that flicker of doubt, that human moment beneath the gruff exterior. Come with me, Michael added, surprising even himself. Let's go to church. We'll pray, talk it through, maybe find some peace in this. For a heartbeat, the old man looked like he might refuse, but then something in his posture shifted. The weight of years settling down as he nodded slowly. All right, he said quietly, let's go. As they walked side by side toward the nearby church, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the empty streets. Michael glanced over, catching the old man stealing a glance back at the cross, resting just over Michael's heart. There was pain there, regret, something unspoken that neither dared voice yet. You don't know the half of it, the old man muttered almost to himself, as if the burden he carried was heavier than he could bear alone. Michael's mind raced with questions, but he kept silent. Whatever this was, it was bigger than either of them, something tangled up in faith, fear, and history. Something that could change everything. So don't look away now. The real story, the one that will shake the ground beneath both their feet, is just beginning. Wait for it. This story is worth every second. The old man hesitated for what felt like an eternity, his eyes fixed on the ground, wrestling with thoughts and memories that weighed heavily on his heart. Then, almost reluctantly, he lifted his gaze and met Michael's steady eyes. All right, he said quietly, the hardness in his voice softening. Let's go. They walked side by side through the fading light of the afternoon toward the small church at the edge of the neighborhood, the air thick with an uneasy silence that neither rushed to break. Inside, the quiet was a stark contrast to the tension that had filled the park moments before. The soft glow of stained glass filtered the light, and the scent of old wood and candle wax wrapped around them like a balm. Michael watched as the old man settled into a pew, hands trembling slightly as he folded them in prayer. Slowly the man's posture softened, the tight lines of worry and anger beginning to ease. Together they prayed, not just for peace or forgiveness, but for understanding, for a bridge over whatever chasm had opened between them. When the prayers ended, the old man turned to Michael, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you or make you feel unwelcome. It's just, I carry old fears with me, things I thought I had left behind. Michael nodded, feeling the weight of those words settle between them like a fragile truce. It's okay, he said. Sometimes the things we carry don't make sense until someone helps us see them differently. They talked for a while longer, the conversation winding through memories, regrets, and the shared humanity that connects us all beneath the surface of suspicion and fear. Eventually, they stepped back out into the evening, the sky now a deep indigo, with stars beginning to sparkle faintly overhead. The old man looked lighter somehow, the burden less crushing. Thank you, he said sincerely, for listening, for not giving up. Michael smiled, the weight of the afternoon shifting into something softer, something hopeful. We all need that sometimes. As they parted ways, a calm settled over the neighborhood, the kind that comes after storms and silence, when the world seems a little less divided. Michael returned to the court, the basketball feeling familiar and grounding in his hands once more. The game continued, steady and sure, but he knew that beneath the surface of this ordinary day, something had changed. Something was waiting just beyond the next play, just beyond the quiet moments between shots. So don't turn away now. The real story is only unfolding. There's more to come, more to understand, and the journey is far from over. Trust me, it's worth staying for.